Hey guys, in today's video, going to be talking about Bernie Sanders and how significantly his polling numbers have been surging nationally since he made his announcement. So what I'm going to do here is take a look at the Morning Consult. Every week they've been coming out with updated national polls amongst the Democratic primary challengers, taking a look at last week's numbers and comparing it to this week's, and you're going to see a significant difference. So starting off here, going back to last week, so this is before Sanders came out and announced that he was running, you can see he's coming in second place with 21% of the vote, Biden at 30% in this particular poll, and then we have Harris at 11, Elizabeth Warren at 8. So a significant separation here between the top two candidates, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, in the rest of the pack, but also a bit of a margin here between Biden and Sanders as well with that 9-point gap. So now we're going to go to the most recent poll that just came out here from the Morning Consult, and you can see a significant boost from Sanders and his announcement. Actually, it's the largest boost of any candidate who's made an announcement, and what's even more impressive about that is the fact that Sanders was already starting at a relatively high number, so boosting up here to 27%, almost right around the margin of error within striking distance there of Joe Biden, who's still at first place with 29%, and then you can see wrapping out the rest of this field, Harris at 10, Warren and O'Rourke at 7 percentage points respectively. And even though Bernie Sanders is still down slightly in the polling data, there are still a couple of things that Sanders supporters can be hopeful for come election time, and that's Bernie doing better in terms of unlikely voters. So a lot of this polling data is amongst likely voters. If he can get a surge amongst unlikely voters, people that aren't participating in polls, for instance, or not saying that they're likely primary participants. A lot of these are going to be anti-establishment types, independent voters. That can really help him in 2020 like it did back in 2016. And also, if Bernie is able to get higher than expected turnout amongst those voters under the age of 40, that can also have a big effect on the final results, given how overwhelmingly strong he's doing with that age demographic. So now going down here, taking a look at the early primary states, these being obviously Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada, Sanders pulling to within 3 percentage points of Joe Biden. Biden still in first at 30 compared to Sanders, who's at 27. But then we go and take a look at those same numbers from last week's poll and look at the difference here. An 11-point gap. Biden was up to 33, and Bernie was down at 22 percentage points. So making up even more ground in these early primary states. Then beyond that, taking a look at the second choice of these Democratic primary voters, and Biden still hasn't announced whether he's going to run or not. The best case scenario for Bernie Sanders is if Biden didn't run, that would make him the clear front runner, not just in the fact that he's already the top polling position amongst all those who have announced, but also Joe Biden voters, their second choice is Bernie Sanders by actually quite a significant margin at 24% compared to Harris and Warren, who are at 11 and 10 percentage points respectively. But then we take a look at the difference here in Sanders even getting a boost amongst those second choice of Biden voters up to 28 percentage points in this most recent poll compared to Harris at 12 and Warren at 8. And it does look like Sanders is siphoning off some of that Elizabeth Warren vote as he's made an announcement, as well as some of that Joe Biden vote as well. Now, scrolling down and taking a look at the announcement bumps that these different Democratic candidates have gotten, we take a look. Julian Castro, 0 points. Gillibrand, 0. Tulsi Gabbard, 0. Pete Buttigieg, 0. Harris actually with a pretty solid climb there of 5 points. She was starting around 5 percentage points, going up to around 10 percentage points in around that realm. So that was a nice bump for her announcement. Then we have Booker only going up by 1 point, Warren 0, Klobuchar just 1 point, and then you can see this big boost here by Bernie Sanders going up to 6. Now, just taking a look at the map here, the best case scenario, like I said earlier, is if Joe Biden didn't run, that would siphon off a lot of that Joe Biden vote over to Bernie Sanders. And really, Bernie, his voting base is particularly quite strong in some of these early primary states like Iowa, as well as New Hampshire. So we could be in a situation, best case scenario for Bernie, Biden's not running, where he wins Iowa by a significant margin. Then he goes over and does even better in New Hampshire, which is probably to be expected. It's a neighboring state to Vermont, and he did extremely well there back in 2016. And then you have a snowball effect of momentum where Bernie is now clearly the front runner going on, and he could sweep a bunch of the rest of these states. Now, South Carolina is going to be a tough one for him, given how poorly he did back in 2016. But if he can make strong gains here, particularly amongst the strong core of African-American voters in South Carolina, we'll see how that plays out for him in 2020. He's definitely trying to make a lot of inroads with these different voting blocks. But the worst case scenario here for Bernie would be if Joe Biden does decide to run and he comes up short in Iowa and New Hampshire, or it's a very competitive situation. And then we go back to 2016, where it's just going to be close throughout, going all the way to the convention. That's another possible scenario that could play itself out. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how all this happens over the next couple of years. And for more of this type of content in the future, please click that subscribe button. I hope to see you back here for future videos. See you guys then.